Dear listeners, just a quick note before we begin. Over the past few episodes in partnership with Central Square Foundation, we've explored the FNL missions, from academic and governance initiatives driving large-scale education reforms to the potential of AI in EdTech. But in the final episode, we turn to the road ahead, highlighting best practices of the NIPUN Bharat mission. In our upcoming episode tomorrow, the 31st of October, we'll be joined by Shavita Sharma Kukreja, CEO and Managing Director of Central Square Foundation, who leads the CSF's work on foundational literacy and numeracy, early childhood education, as well as EdTech and school governance. The episode will be available at indianexpress.com and all major podcast platforms. Don't miss it, and also check out earlier episodes through the links in today's show notes. Now on with the show.
Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the Delhi government trying to induce artificial rain in an effort to bring down air pollution. We also give you an update about the case of sexual harassment involving two Australian cricketers in Indore. But we begin today by talking about the political analyst-turned-politician, Prashant Kishor. For years, voters in Bihar have essentially had two options to choose from. The Mahagathbandhan, which this time includes the Rashtriya Janata Dal, the Congress and the left parties, or the National Democratic Alliance, comprising the Janata Dal United, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the Lok Janshakti Party, among others. But this time, a new player has entered the fray. Prashant Kishor's Jan Swaraj.
हम आपको जन सुराज में गांव-गांव जाकर बता रहे हैं, ऐसा मंत्र सिखा रहे हैं कि वोट जिसको देना है दे दो, वोट जिसको देना है दे दो, लेकिन जो जन सुराज का मंत्र सीख कर दोगे तो और कुछ हो या न हो, आपके बच्चों के लिए पढ़ाई रोजगार जरूर हो जाएगा.
Now, his party is not only aiming to give voters a fresh alternative, but also, as we'll discuss, is hoping to upend Bihar's political landscape, something that hasn't happened in the state for years.
I think this must be after late 80s and 90s. You know, after the social justice movement started in Bihar, and it led to formation of, new parties such as Samta Party, Janata Dal, and then later Lok Janshakti Party and all, which all came together, fell apart at different times. I think this is the first time after that phase that we are seeing the entry of a serious major political party entering the fray of elections in Bihar.
That's the Indian Express's Deeptiman Tiwary, who has been reporting on Bihar for the paper.
Although Bihar has multiple parties, but they generally have very long-term coalitions which have gone on for quite some time. So this is after a very, very long time that we are seeing, one could say after 3 decades or more than that we say a new party being ushered into Bihar politics.
And Deeptiman, since we are talking about this new player, Prashant Kishor, how would you describe him to someone who doesn't know anything about him?
Okay, it's unlikely that anyone who follows Indian politics does not know anything about Prashant Kishor. He is a very famous figure because many would say that if it wasn't for Prashant Kishor, probably Narendra Modi would not have found it very easy to ride the wave of anger against the Congress in 2014 and come to power, because it was Prashant Kishor who designed and executed the political and electoral strategy of Narendra Modi in 2014 polls. Since then, he has become very famous as a political strategist. He runs a company known as IPAC, which works in various states and works with various state governments, designing their political and electoral strategy and driving it as well on the ground. We all know that after 2014, he helped Nitish Kumar and Lalu Yadav, come together in a Gathbandhan and designed their electoral strategy, drove their campaign, and they were successful. He failed in UP when Congress and Samajwadi Party came together against the BJP in 2017. But again, he went to West Bengal, where he was very successful against a belligerent and aggressive BJP. where he even put his reputation on the line, saying that if BJP crosses a certain number of seats in West Bengal polls, he would quit the job of political strategist. So he has been a very, very successful political strategist for many parties. His company, IPAC, continues to work with many political parties. He also led the campaign in Punjab when Congress won the polls. So he has worked with all political parties. He understands politics very well. More than politics, he understands elections very well and how to win elections. An entry of such a political strategist as the head of a political party in a very, very crucial state as Bihar is very, very interesting. And his political language in a state like Bihar, which is very caste driven, has deep caste fissures, is that of a technocrat, where he's talking about governance, he's talking about change, he's talking about administrative reforms, and he's talking about, providing jobs to the youth in a manner which is not a government dole of, government jobs, but creating opportunities in the economy. So his language is very modern, but also very technocratic.
अब लोगों को अगले 10 दिन 15 दिन के अंदर ये निर्णय लेना है कि क्या अभी की जो भ्रष्ट व्यवस्था है उसी को चलाना है, पुराने वाले जंगल राज को लाना है, या नई व्यवस्था बनानी है। अगर नई व्यवस्था बनाएंगे तो आपके बच्चों के लिए पढ़ाई और रोजगार होगा, और अभी की व्यवस्था चलाते रहिएगा तो भ्रष्टाचार से मुक्ति नहीं मिलेगी, आपके बच्चों को पलायन करना पड़ेगा।
In a way, one would equate it with, the kind of buzz that, Arvind Kejriwal created in Delhi when he rode the wave of the Anna movement, and the kind of language that he spoke the language of governance. And he said that his ideology, in fact, was governance. So that is more or less, not entirely, because Arvind Kejriwal was contesting in a city and Prashant Kishor is contesting in a largely rural state. But there are many similarities between the political approach of the two parties.
And you mentioned that he's been a very effective political strategist, right? But his work has been behind closed doors, although media has always spoken to him and he is very media savvy. But how would you say has been his transition from being behind closed doors to now being a public figure and addressing public rallies?
The advantage with Prashant Kishor is that he also speaks well and he can talk well. For example, many political strategists who cannot hold the mic will find it difficult to face the public, but that is not a handicap that Prashant Kishor has. And he's probably somewhere at the back of his mind, he's realized that if I can make so many people win, why can't I win myself? The only, disadvantage he will have, because he's not coming from any kind of movement, he's not riding any kind of wave, so he is building his party from the scratch. But otherwise, his transition from a political strategist to a politician has been rather seamless.
And like you said, he's not riding a wave, and it's not like he's a grassroots politician who has been working in the field for years. So could you talk about in what way he has been preparing himself for these polls?
See, there are two things that IPAC does. What IPAC does is it conducts ground surveys to find out what are the issues that impact the people the most, what is there on the minds of the people as far as, determination of their own future through the political process is concerned. And he also understands caste, because, you cannot build a political strategy without taking into account caste equations. So these are the kind of things that he is very good at. And that is what he has leveraged in his own campaign. He has first figured out what are the issues which are dogging people in Bihar the most. He understands that the demography of Bihar is largely young. Most of these young people are, forced to migrate because there are no opportunities in Bihar. And they are working in pitiable condition in other states where they not only live in pitiable condition, but they are humiliated, for who they are. They are called uncouth, they are called Biharis, and he understands this, and so he has built his campaign largely on the issue of migration.
हर रेलवे स्टेशन पर, हर बस स्टैंड में खाली बिहार का लड़का धक्का खा रहा है। अब मोदी जी आके भाषण दे रहे हैं कि हम यहाँ डेटा सस्ता कर दिए हैं। तो कल हमने बोला है कि हम लोग को भैया डेटा नहीं चाहिए, हम लोग अपना बेटा वापस चाहिए, बिहार में रोजगार चाहिए। ये कह रहे हैं जिस बिहार के लोगों को लोग बिहारी कह के गाली देता है, अपमानित करता है, वही बिहार के लोग ऐसी व्यवस्था बनाएंगे कि पूरे देश का आदमी देखेगा कि ये क्या हुआ। बिहार में
So these are the ground issues that he understands. So he picks up these issues and builds his campaign on them, and he builds a communication which, tugs onto the emotions of the people. And he says, आप अपने बच्चों के लिए वोट कीजिए. Vote for your kids. So he is not saying कि आपको ये फायदा मिलेगा. Those promises are also there. But that is not the top of his campaign. Top of his campaign is emotive issue. बच्चों के लिए कीजिए.
अब परीक्षा का समय है, नहीं सुधरिएगा, गलती कीजिएगा तो याद रखिए अगले 5 वर्ष इसी दुर्दशा में, इसी भ्रष्टाचार में फिर जीना पड़ेगा। तो अगर अपना और अपने बच्चों का जीवन सुधारना चाहते हैं तो हाथ जोड़ रहे हैं मेरे भाई, एक बार अपने बच्चों के लिए वोट दीजिए। नेता के बच्चा लोग के लिए वोट बहुत हो गया, एक बार अपने बच्चों के लिए वोट दीजिए, तभी बिहार में सुधार होगा।
So he understands campaigns very well. What remains to be seen is how good he is at building an organization. He has an organization in the form of IPAC, like Aam Aadmi Party had this Anna movement volunteers. But in a complex state like Bihar, where proximity of a candidate, familiarity matters, political party workers' familiarity with the people matters as much as political narratives. So how well he has built an organization will be tested in these elections.
And if you're a voter from Bihar, it would be a bit of a gamble for you to vote for such a new party, and especially when you know that these other players have a lot more clout. So is Prashant Kishor conscious of that, and how is he addressing these concerns in his campaign?
Look, one thing that you can always say about Prashant Kishor is that he knows exactly what he's doing. He is not saying something in a false hope. He knows exactly what he's doing. He also knows exactly what he's going to get. He may claim over the camera that Suraaj is winning this election. Every politician has to say that to instill confidence among voters, because nobody wants to vote for a losing candidate. But he knows at the back of his mind that 2 years is not enough to build a political party in a state like Bihar. This is not a city. Aam Aadmi Party had it easy. It was one riding a wave of anger against the Congress, and it had to deal with a city where it could give free electricity and, free water, and that would mean a lot to, the poor, urban poor. And it could ride that wave and confidence of the people and win elections. A complex state like Bihar with so many caste fissures, with so much of diversity from one end to the other, is not easy. And he understands. He knows that this is an election that I have to make a splash so that I reach the mind of every voter. Once I reach the mind of the voter, then probably by next election, I will have a party which will be a serious contender. Also, he is speaking a political language that other political parties are not able to, for various reasons. Because they've both served for 15 years, 20 years, so there is a credibility crisis. If RJD says that we will give you good governance, people will say, what are you saying? You were there for 15 years. What did you give? If Nitish Kumar says, I will give you jobs, everybody will laugh. You've been for 20 years, there are no jobs. So Prashant Kishor has no such baggage. He will be tested only when he comes to power. So right now he can say anything. But what he is also doing intelligently is he's not making promises which look stupid on their very face. For example, we are traveling across Bihar right now. Not even die-hard supporters of RJD are saying that Tejaswi's promise of giving a government job to every family is going to come true. Nobody believes it. So he's not making outrageous promises. And when he talks, he gives evidence. So it gives a sense that to the people that this guy means business. He's not talking bullshit.
Right, and even the concern that someone's vote might go to waste. He's been saying that, वैसे भी आपका vote waste हो रहा है, as in your vote is anyway getting wasted, so why not give a new player a chance? But, besides all this, almost every political party in the country has its caste equations aligned. In Bihar, RJD has traditionally relied on the Muslim Yadav vote bank. JDU has relied on OBCs and Mahadalits. Is Prashant Kishor factoring in those caste equations in his campaign?
See, Prashant Kishor is taking a gamble. He's taking a gamble of coming up with an idea and thinking that I can change Bihar politics itself. I don't know how successful he will be. I will be happy if he does. If Bihar politics can change and rise above caste, I mean, in any state, it's a welcome thing. That, if people only vote for governance, you would welcome in any state. Why Bihar? Caste is a factor in UP, caste is a factor everywhere. Barring urban constituencies, caste is a factor everywhere. So, but why is he doing that? Because he comes from a caste on which he cannot build a caste politics. And upper caste have the lowest numbers in Bihar. Talk to any politician in Bihar and they will say that an upper caste person can never become chief minister in Bihar.
Right, you'll be asking people from the oppressed castes to vote for someone from the oppressor caste.
Exactly. So if you start the caste narrative, you will be in deep trouble in Bihar, at least in the current state of affairs, in the current state of socio-politics in the state. You will be in trouble if you try to build a political narrative on caste because you have no base. For that matter, even Nitish Kumar has a very small base. He has 2.5% of voters from his caste, which is Kurmi, but he's an OBC. So he can sort of build, a brotherhood, sort of fraternal feeling for the entire OBC caste, which is a huge chunk. If Prashant Kishor tries to build an upper caste vote bank, it'll be what, 10%? So he cannot build a caste narrative because that is a disadvantage he has. And politically also it is a disadvantage because in the past few decades, the way after Mandal politics, the way the political landscape of the Hindi heartland has changed, you need sort of a caste base to build on. Whatever caste base, which is what you call as, you either need a caste base or you need an ideology, where you get a committed number of voters who will vote for your idea. Like, for example, BJP has a Hindutva ideology. So there is a vote base which will vote for it come what may, whether it is losing, whether it is winning. Okay, so there are Dalit parties, so there will be Dalits who will, like, for the longest time, Dalits kept voting for Mayawati whether she wins or loses. Even if she is winning one seat in the entire state, she was getting 20% votes, which means there was a committed set of voters. So it is easy to build on a committed set of voters, because if you already have 20%, 15%, then in electoral calculations, you say that, okay, fine, I have to add these many to cross the line. So then you strategize based on that. He doesn't have that. He cannot have that. And that is why he's trying to build a narrative around changing politics altogether.
And Deeptiman, based on what he's been pitching, where do you think he'll have the most impact during these polls? Is it urban constituencies? Is it young people?
See, since his poll pitch itself is migration and education, so naturally he is going to appeal more to educated voters. He's going to appeal more to urban voters. He's going to appeal also to migrant voters. Voters who are eking out a livelihood in different cities across this country. And there are a large number of such Biharis in this country. So he is going to appeal to them. But among the traditional voters, people who have their loyalties fixed with, certain parties, who have certain years behind them, who have seen certain changes in Bihar over a period of years. So they are likely to begin trusting the party, after a few years only. In fact, even among young voters, there are people who are impressed by Jan Suraaj, but will not vote for it because they think that the party is either not ready or they would like to see more of it to trust it completely rather than just words. They would like them to come to their constituencies, come to their villages and work with them and see that they mean business instead of just words. And there are some who think that, unless you come to a position where I see that you're winning, I am not going to waste my vote on you.
And next we turn our attention to Delhi, which post-Diwali and as temperatures dip, is once again recording some of the highest pollution levels in the world. Perhaps it doesn't bear repeating, as many of you already know this, but this crisis brings not only short-term effects like scratchy throats, burning eyes and headaches, but also severe long-term health risks, including heart disease, bronchitis, asthma, and even cancer. Now, while multiple factors contribute to Delhi's poor air quality, such as vehicular emissions, construction dust, municipal waste burning, coal-based power generation around the capital, and low wind speeds, experts in the past have said that stricter regulations and better enforcement could bring down the pollution levels by almost 50%. But instead of focusing on the factors and sources we mentioned, the Delhi government, in collaboration with IIT Kanpur, has this year launched a long-delayed artificial rain project, hoping that something called cloud seeding could help clear the city's toxic air. To understand how this technology works and why experts believe it's a flawed solution, my colleague Ichha Sharma speaks to the Indian Express's Anjali Marar, who writes on science for the paper.
Anjali, we know that Delhi's air quality every winter plunges to severe levels, and this year the government has turned to a new solution of cloud seeding. So could you start by explaining what this experiment is about?
So cloud seeding is one of the last resource which is used or deployed for combating air pollution and severe smog conditions, typically which Delhi experiences every winter. This is not a new kind of experiment or attempt being made. But yes, with the renewed interest, the present Delhi government is making an attempt. This time it is being done in partnership with IIT Kanpur. The Delhi government and IIT Kanpur had signed an MOU earlier this year for performing cloud seeding experiments. This is mainly to combat the air pollution. So cloud seeding is one of the methods deployed world over when there is not enough rainfall occurring during the monsoon season. By that, I mean when there are potential rain-bearing clouds that you see in the sky, but for some reason it is not translating into rainfall, is when you trigger these artificial mechanisms or artificial way of causing rainfall. So here also in Delhi, the attempt is to cause artificial rainfall by seeding the potent clouds. And in case the rain occurs, then it kind of pulls down the suspended pollutants in the air, and there is some check on the pollutant level concentration in the air. That is what is being attempted in Delhi, and there was one first trial attempt made on October 28th. I believe there were 2 sorties performed, and about 14 flares were fired.
Okay, so cloud seeding is basically used to trigger artificial rainfall, right? So how is the project supposed to work in Delhi? Like, what are its immediate objectives?
So in a cloud seeding experiment, typically there are these research aircrafts which are used. These are not the general aircrafts one travels in to commute from A place to B place. There are these specialized aircrafts which are loaded with certain chemical materials, typically silver iodide or certain chemicals involving salts. These chemicals are then used to seed the clouds which are identified as potent clouds. So in order to perform these experiments, the basic requirement is there should be potent clouds available in the sky. And then these aircrafts are flown closer to these clouds, and the chemical flares are, kind of pumped into these clouds. And after a certain time interval, it is expected that the rain would occur. So in this case, there were flights that took off from a little away from Delhi, and there were 2 or 3 localities in Delhi, including Mayur Vihar and neighborhood areas where the trials were performed on October 28th.
Right, and you had highlighted in your reportage that how scientists say that this plan may not actually work. So why is that?
So from the first trial and the observations from the ground observations of rainfall, it is very hard to say what caused the rainfall. There were sporadic incidents of rain, but it is still not sure whether it was a natural cause of rainfall or did the cloud seeding trigger the rainfall. So there's still a debate going on, and that we don't have an answer on it. One of the reasons that the scientists, those not involved in the experiment, they are underlining is that cloud seeding is something which, generally it's not performed in the post-monsoon season, which is like the October to December period. And the primary reason for that is the absence of moisture, absence of potent clouds, which, otherwise would go ahead and lead to rainfall. So the basic question that a large section of scientists are posing is that when there are no clouds, when there is lack of moisture, then what is it that the aircraft is going to seed? Imagine that there are dry conditions and there are unfavorable conditions. So it would seem that the flight sorties would not find any potent clouds. So in the sense, it may be a futile effort. Also, the Ministry of Earth Sciences, which has performed cloud seeding experiments and studies previously, has not done any such experiments over the Delhi region. So at least there is no credible data backing to say that, you can perform cloud seeding experiments over Delhi and bring down the air pollution. So that is also something which is lacking. All these reasons put together is why some section of scientists who have previously done experiments in parts of Maharashtra, the southern peninsular region, they feel that post-monsoon season cloud seeding over Delhi may not be a good idea.
Right, and Anjali, talk about how well did the first set of trials perform? Because we understand that the second set of trials have been put on hold due to insufficient moisture in the clouds.
So the first trial of cloud seeding over Delhi was performed on October 28th. That too, it was postponed multiple times due to unfavorable weather conditions. So there were attempts being planned since early October, but it was only on the October 28th when the first trial occurred. So what we learned is that there were 2 sorties which were done, and about 14 flares of chemicals were fired up. And in the chemicals, it was also a combination of silver iodide, rock salt, and common salt in certain proportions, which is a mixture which the IIT Kanpur has developed indigenously. So there was not much of rainfall activity which occurred after the trials. So we cannot say that the first attempt was of great success.
Right, and as we discussed, this isn't the first time an initiative like this has been tried out. India has experimented with cloud seeding before in several states. So what did those studies reveal?
Yeah, so under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, there has been a campaign called Cloud Aerosol Interaction and Precipitation Enhancement Experiment, or CAIPEX as it is known as. So as the name suggests, it is basically to enhance the precipitation, enhance the rainfall. And the geographical area chosen for this was the large parts of southern peninsula. The experiments were done in 4 phases, and this started in 2009 and has gone on for a decade or so until 2019 in multiple phases. This was largely done in a controlled manner, and this was mainly for experimental purpose. That is to study if one performs a cloud seeding experiment, what does it result into? So this was not done to really cause rainfall, but this was mainly done to test if cloud seeding can be one of the mechanisms deployed. Supposing that, there's a season where rainfall isn't occurring as expected or as desired. So some of the major outcomes that the final phase of CAIPEX experiment reported was that, yes, there was an increase in the rainfall activity over certain region of about 46%. But on an average, the increase was seen by 18% over a 100 square kilometer area. But this, again, what the results are typically only representing the southern peninsula region. It is not a pan-India, or it is not a larger geographical area. So we must take that result with keeping this limitation in mind. But yes, there was recommendations and suggestions put across where all this cloud seeding could be applicable. So one can be that it can be, the main one, of course, being that you can enhance rainfall. Second being, there can be some amount of suppression achieved if the rainfall occurs, the suppression in, events of fog or hail or, for example, pollution. But that is again with limitation. So these are the outcomes which have come out from the CAIPEX program of the Ministry of Earth Sciences.
And Anjali, do we know how much a cloud seeding trial costs?
I wouldn't be able to quote an exact amount, but usually these are expensive affairs for multiple reasons. Number one, the aircraft availability itself. These are specialized aircraft, so not everybody owns one, so we may have to hire an aircraft. So the availability of aircraft and cost for it. Then second would be the chemicals that is involved in it, depending on what chemical composition you're going for. Then third would be the flight from where you're taking off and which area. How long are you going to fly? What is the altitude you're going to fly? For example, in case of Delhi, I was told that the flight was taking off from a farther location and then coming over to Delhi. So the distance was, substantial, which could have added to the cost. But definitely it would be a few crores in the trial. So this is an expensive affair, which is also the next question, that is it a sustainable solution? Is it something that can be afforded?
And lastly, Anjali, since this is a pilot project and the conditions under which the government plans to test it are still debatable, could cloud seeding ever realistically become a reliable long-term solution to pollution?
Well, this may not be a straightforward answer, but cloud seeding largely is being seen as an SOS mechanism, wherein it is a last resort, or it is it's done only when the pollution levels, for example, is at the peak and you need some immediate solution to bring it down. And So it's not a permanent solution, or it's not the go-to solution always. Like I said, there are multiple factors involved. It could be the costs. It could be how much outcome in terms of rainfall will occur. All these may not make it the best possible option to go for.
And in the end, we turn our attention to Indore, where two players from the Australian women's cricket team last week were allegedly stalked and sexually harassed while walking from their hotel to a cafe. The incident took place during the ongoing ICC Women's World Cup, which is being jointly hosted by India and Sri Lanka. Now, the police have identified the accused as Akil Khan, a 29-year-old resident of Indore who was arrested late Thursday night after a bystander noted his motorcycle registration number. Police say that he has at least 10 prior criminal cases, including robbery, assault, drug use, and attempted murder. As reported by the Indian Express's Anand Mohan, Khan's first case was in 2012 for theft, followed by multiple robberies and a jail sentence in 2017 for voluntarily causing hurt during robbery. He was later involved in prison violence, excise and drug offences, and several knife-point robberies in 2024. The Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association condemned the incident as deeply disturbing, adding that no woman should ever have to endure such trauma. It also said that it was truly inspiring to see players rise above this painful experience and continue to compete with courage and determination, carrying the pride of their nation on their shoulders. Though, in sharp contrast, Kailash Vijayvargiya, the Minister of Urban Development and Housing, as well as the Parliamentary Affairs Minister in the state, said that the incident is a lesson for the authorities as well as the players who ought to have informed the security or the local administration before stepping out. His comments drew sharp criticism, especially from the Congress, which called his statement unfortunate and utterly disgusting. Meanwhile, Khan is currently in judicial custody while the investigation in the case continues. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Ichha Sharma and me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.